You have been negotiating your value your entire life without realizing you were even at the table. Every time you tolerated disrespect to keep the peace, you signed a contract that lowered your price. Every time you laughed off an insult so others would feel comfortable, you told the world your dignity was negotiable. And every time you over-explained your boundaries to people who had no intention of respecting them, you handed them the blueprint for how to control you. This is the brutal truth most men never confront. People do not decide how to treat you based on fairness, kindness, or morality. They decide based on the signals you broadcast consciously and unconsciously every single day. Respect is not granted. It is calibrated. And the calibration begins with you. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology gave it language. He observed that rulers were not treated according to who they were, but according to what they tolerated. A prince who forgave every offense invited more offenses. A prince who punished unpredictably created caution. A prince who allowed familiarity dissolved his own authority. In the theater of power, perception becomes reality, and reality becomes destiny. You think people are disrespecting you because they are cruel. In truth, they are simply responding to the environment you allowed to exist. Human beings are opportunistic by nature. They push where there is space. They test where there is weakness. They take where there is no resistance. Not because they are evil, but because they are human. The moment you understand this, you stop taking things personally and start taking them strategically. How people treat you is not random. It is a feedback loop. Your reactions teach them what works. Your silence teaches them what does not. Your standards teach them where the line is drawn. If there is no line, they will keep walking. Most men believe respect comes from being likable. Machiavelli knew it comes from being formidable. Not loud, not aggressive, formidable. The kind of presence that makes people instinctively calculate their behavior before speaking. The kind of energy that says, consequences exist here. You do not control people by force. You control the conditions under which they interact with you. Watch how a king sits in his throne room. He does not chase anyone. He does not beg for loyalty. He does not negotiate his authority with every visitor who enters the hall. His power is embedded in the environment itself. Guards at the door, silence in the room, protocol in the air. The rules are felt before they are spoken. This is how you must operate in your own life. The first principle of controlling how people treat you is this: remove the illusion of unlimited access. Familiarity breeds contempt because familiarity removes consequence. When people feel they can reach you anytime, speak to you anyway, demand your attention at will, they stop valuing your presence. You become infrastructure instead of an individual. Scarcity creates respect. Not artificial scarcity, not childish games, but strategic selectiveness. You answer when you choose. You engage when it benefits you. You withdraw when something violates your standards. People quickly learn that access to you is conditional, not guaranteed. Machiavelli advised princes to be generous with rewards, but unpredictable in punishment. Modern men do the opposite. They tolerate everything and reward nothing. They remain loyal to people who disrespect them and distant from those who honor them. They invert the hierarchy of value and then wonder why chaos follows. You will reverse this. Reward respect immediately. Acknowledge those who treat you well. Invest in those who prove their loyalty through action. But the moment someone crosses the line, withdraw warmth without drama. No speeches, no emotional displays. Just distance. The human mind notices the absence of warmth more than the presence of anger. Anger still gives them attention. Silence removes oxygen. Understand this deeply. People fear losing access more than they fear confrontation. When you argue, they feel engaged. When you shout, they feel important. When you explain, they feel powerful. But when you step back and become unreachable, they feel uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds caution. This is not manipulation. This is behavioral conditioning at its most fundamental level. You are training people how to treat you the way a ruler trains a court, through consistent signals, not emotional reactions. The second principle is emotional neutrality. People test you to measure your stability. They provoke you to see how easily you can be moved. The man who reacts explosively reveals that he can be controlled. The man who collapses reveals that he can be dominated. But the man who remains steady becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability creates authority. Imagine insulting a mountain. It does not respond. It does not defend itself. It simply remains. Over time, the one shouting looks foolish, not the mountain. You must become that mountain. When someone disrespects you, your instinct will be to retaliate. This is ego seeking restoration. But power does not rush to restore itself, because power was never threatened in the first place. Only insecurity panics. Machiavelli warned that rulers who act from wounded pride make the worst decisions. Pride seeks immediate relief. Strategy seeks long-term dominance. Pause before responding. Ask yourself a single question. Will this reaction increase my authority or decrease it? If the answer is unclear, say nothing. Silence preserves options. Words eliminate them. Over time, people will notice something unsettling about you. They will realize they cannot provoke you into predictable behavior. They will feel that they are interacting with someone operating on a different set of rules. That discomfort becomes respect. The third principle is controlled unpredictability. Humans rely on patterns to feel safe. When you always respond the same way, people learn how to navigate around you. When you are occasionally warm and occasionally distant, occasionally available and occasionally unreachable, you create an environment where people must remain attentive. Machiavelli called this the balance between love and fear. Not terror, not cruelty, tension. Enough warmth to keep loyalty alive, enough distance to prevent familiarity from dissolving respect. Think of the most powerful figures in history. They were not constantly visible. They appeared when necessary and vanished when their presence was no longer required. Their absence amplified their myth. Their presence commanded the room. You do not need a crown to apply this. You need discipline. Speak less than you know. Reveal less than you feel. Offer less than you can. The mystery forces people to project significance onto you. When people cannot fully read you, they assume depth. Most men overshare because they want connection. Powerful men understand that controlled opacity creates intrigue. Intrigue becomes influence. And here is the secret few dare to accept. Controlling how people treat you begins with controlling how you treat yourself. If you tolerate chaos internally, you will tolerate it externally. If you disrespect your own time, others will disrespect it too. If you abandon your own standards for convenience, the world will follow your example. Your internal discipline sets the external tone. Wake up when you said you would wake up. Finish what you said you would finish. Keep promises you made to yourself, even when no one is watching. Each act of self-control strengthens the signal you emit to the world. This man is governed by principles, not impulses. People sense this before they understand it. They adjust accordingly. You are not trying to dominate people. You are establishing gravity. Gravity does not force objects to orbit. It simply exists, and objects respond to it naturally. Become so grounded in your standards that disrespect feels incompatible with your presence. Become so selective with your energy that attention becomes a privilege. Become so calm under pressure that emotional manipulation stops working entirely. When you reach this state, you will notice something extraordinary. People begin treating you differently without you demanding anything. Conversations become more respectful. Boundaries become accepted without argument. Invitations become more deliberate. Disrespect becomes rare because the cost of it is obvious. You did not beg for this change. You engineered it. This is the Machiavellian truth modern society hides from men. You do not control others by controlling them. You control them by controlling yourself so completely that their behavior adjusts automatically. The world does not respond to what you say you deserve. It responds to what you demonstrate you will accept. From this moment forward, you will stop negotiating your worth. You will stop teaching people that access to you is cheap. You will stop reacting in ways that lower your authority. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected. And respect begins when people realize that crossing you comes with consequences, not loud consequences, not dramatic consequences, but the quiet, irreversible consequence of losing access to you entirely. Because the ultimate power is not making people fear you, it is making them fear losing you. And once that shift happens, you will never again have to ask for respect. It will be the only way they know how to treat you. Most men fail at controlling how people treat them for one simple reason. They wait until after the disrespect happens to decide what their standards are. They improvise boundaries in the middle of emotional chaos, and emotion is the worst strategist that has ever existed. By the time anger enters the room, logic has already left through the back door. Machiavelli observed that the most effective rulers never governed reactively. They established order before disorder had a chance to spread. Laws were written before crimes were committed. Consequences were understood before anyone dared to test them. This preemptive authority prevented challenges because it made the outcome predictable. You must do the same in your personal kingdom. Control how people treat you by deciding in advance what you will and will not tolerate. Not vaguely, not emotionally, precisely. Write it in your mind like law carved into stone. Interruptions when you are focused. Jokes disguised as insults. Requests that drain your time without adding value. Familiarity that erodes respect. Identify them all before they happen. Because once you know your boundaries clearly, enforcing them becomes mechanical instead of emotional. The powerful man does not argue about his standards. He enforces them through behavior. If someone crosses a line, he does not explode, lecture, or plead for understanding. He simply adjusts access. Conversations become shorter. Availability decreases. Warmth fades. The environment changes. People are extraordinarily sensitive to environmental shifts. They may ignore your words, but they will feel your distance. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, "Injuries must be inflicted in such a way that one does not fear retaliation." Quiet consequences create confusion. Confusion creates caution. Caution creates respect. Most men announce their boundaries loudly and then fail to enforce them consistently. They threaten distance but remain available. They demand respect but tolerate disrespect repeatedly. This inconsistency teaches people that your words carry no weight. Consistency is the true source of authority. If you withdraw once and then return as if nothing happened, you teach people that persistence defeats your standards. If you remain distant until behavior improves, you teach them that respect restores access. Human beings learn quickly when incentives are clear. You are not punishing people. You are conditioning behavior. The next principle is detachment from outcome. As long as you need someone's approval, affection, or presence, you cannot control how they treat you. Neediness transfers power. The one who needs less dictates the terms of engagement. Machiavelli warned princes never to become dependent on mercenaries because dependence creates vulnerability. In modern life, emotional dependence plays the same role. If you fear losing someone, they sense it. If you fear confrontation, they exploit it. If you fear loneliness, they weaponize it. Freedom begins when you are prepared to walk away from anything that costs your dignity. This is not about isolation, it is about sovereignty. You choose relationships from strength, not desperation. You engage because you want to, not because you need to. That subtle difference transforms how people perceive you. When someone knows you can leave without hesitation, they treat your presence differently. Your time becomes valuable because it is not guaranteed. Your attention becomes meaningful because it is not easily obtained. The paradox of power is that you gain influence the moment you become comfortable with loss. Loss of approval, loss of comfort, loss of familiarity, loss of people who cannot meet your standards. Each loss creates space for something aligned with your worth, but most men cling to what diminishes them because the fear of emptiness feels worse than the pain of disrespect. Machiavelli understood that fear of instability keeps rulers weak. A prince who fears chaos will tolerate corruption to maintain peace. A man who fears loneliness will tolerate disrespect to maintain company. In both cases, decay becomes inevitable. You will choose strength over comfort. Another mechanism that shapes how people treat you is controlled exposure. The more people see you without boundaries, the more they assume boundaries do not exist. Oversharing creates vulnerability. Constant availability creates entitlement. Predictability creates exploitation. Limit what people know about you, not through secrecy born of paranoia, but through discretion born of intelligence. Share your thoughts selectively. Reveal your struggles only to those who have proven loyalty. Protect your ambitions from those who would undermine them. Mystery forces respect because it prevents familiarity from turning into contempt. Think of how society treats celebrities, leaders, and high-status individuals. They are not respected solely because of their achievements. They are respected because access to them is controlled. Interviews are scheduled, appearances are rare. Personal lives are guarded. Distance amplifies perceived value. You can apply the same principle without fame or fortune. Become less available for trivial conversations. Stop volunteering information that does not serve your purpose. Allow people to wonder instead of explaining everything. Curiosity keeps them engaged. Oversharing makes them comfortable enough to lower their regard for you. Comfort is not always your ally. Now understand the role of body language and presence. Before you speak a single word, people are already deciding how to treat you. They read posture, eye contact, pacing, tone. A man who moves with hesitation signals uncertainty. A man who speaks too quickly signals anxiety. A man who avoids eye contact signals submission. You must align your physical presence with your internal standards. Stand as if you belong wherever you are. Speak as if your words do not require validation. Move as if time bends slightly around your priorities. This is not arrogance, it is coherence. Your body communicating the same message as your mind. I am not here to be negotiated with. Machiavelli noted that appearances often matter more than reality in politics. People judge by what they see. Authority is performed before it is believed. When your presence communicates certainty, people assume there is substance behind it. Confidence is not loudness. It is absence of doubt. But the final and most overlooked principle is selective kindness. Power is not constant coldness. Unrelenting hardness creates resistance. Strategic warmth creates loyalty. The same man who is unreachable to the unworthy becomes deeply supportive to the deserving. This contrast magnifies both qualities. When people see that you are capable of kindness, but choose carefully where to direct it, they value it more. Random kindness is taken for granted. Selective kindness is remembered. It signals discernment. It shows that your warmth is not weakness, but a privilege. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and upright, but to remain ready to act against these virtues when necessary. In modern terms, this means being balanced, not naive, not cruel. Strategic. You are not becoming a tyrant of your own life. You are becoming a disciplined architect of your social environment. Once these principles become habit, something subtle but powerful occurs. People stop testing you because previous tests produced unsatisfying results. Disrespect no longer yields attention. Manipulation no longer yields compliance. Provocation no longer yields reaction. They adjust because the old methods stopped working. This is how you control how people treat you without demanding anything, without threats, without drama, without speeches about respect. You let behavior shape itself around your standards, because in the end, people do not treat you according to what you say. They treat you according to what your presence makes possible, and when your presence makes disrespect impossible, respect becomes the only option left. There comes a point in every man's evolution where techniques, strategies, and philosophies collapse into something far simpler and far more dangerous: identity. Because the ultimate way to control how people treat you is not by constantly managing their behavior, but by becoming the kind of man for whom certain behaviors never even appear. Machiavelli understood that the strongest rulers did not spend their days extinguishing rebellions. They ruled in such a way that rebellion felt futile before it began. Their reputation traveled ahead of them like a storm warning. By the time they entered a room, the outcome was already decided. This is where you are going. When your standards stop being rules, you enforce and start becoming who you are, everything changes. You no longer think about boundaries because violations feel unnatural to everyone involved. You no longer rehearse responses to disrespect because disrespect rarely arrives. You no longer worry about being misunderstood because your presence communicates more than explanations ever could. Reputation becomes your invisible armor. Every interaction you have is a brick in that armor. Each time you walk away from nonsense instead of engaging, people remember. Each time you remain calm under pressure, people notice. Each time you refuse to chase approval, the message spreads quietly through social circles. This man operates differently, and once that reputation solidifies, it begins working for you even when you are not present. People warn others before crossing you. They adjust their tone when mentioning your name. They choose their words carefully when you enter conversations. Not because you demanded it, but because your history taught them what happens when standards are ignored. This is power at its most efficient influence that requires no effort. But understand this clearly. Reputation is fragile if not maintained. One emotional outburst, one desperate chase, one moment of public weakness can undo months of disciplined restraint. Not because you became weak, but because inconsistency confuses people. And confusion invites testing. The man who controls how people treat him guards his composure like a king guards his throne. There will be moments designed to break you. Public disrespect meant to provoke a reaction. Silent treatments meant to lure you into chasing. False accusations meant to drag you into defensive explanations. These are traps, and the moment you step into them, you return to the level of those who set them. Machiavelli warned that wise rulers avoid battles chosen by their enemies. You must do the same. Not every attack deserves a defense. Not every rumor deserves a correction. Not every insult deserves a response. Sometimes the most dominant move is to act as if nothing happened at all, because indifference sends a message louder than retaliation ever could. You are not significant enough to disturb my focus. This final stage is where most men fail, because it requires absolute emotional independence. You cannot control how people treat you if your mood depends on their behavior. You cannot maintain authority if your peace depends on their approval. You cannot project stability if your inner world is constantly reacting to external noise. The untouchable man builds his peace on foundations that cannot be shaken by opinion, rejection, or misunderstanding. He knows who he is without needing confirmation. He knows what he stands for without needing applause. He knows where he is going without needing companions to validate the direction. This internal certainty radiates outward, and people feel it instinctively. It makes manipulation impossible, because manipulation requires leverage, and leverage requires need. Remove the need, and the leverage disappears. At this level, you no longer think about controlling people at all. You simply exist with such clarity and discipline that control becomes unnecessary. People align themselves naturally because misalignment feels uncomfortable in your presence. You become the reference point. This is the hidden truth behind Machiavellian mastery in modern life. It is not about domination, cruelty, or fear. It is about self-command, so complete that external forces lose their influence over you. When you command yourself, the world responds accordingly. From this day forward, you stop asking why people treat you the way they do. You start asking what your behavior has been teaching them. You stop chasing respect. You embody standards so high that disrespect cannot survive around you. You become calm where others are reactive, silent where others are loud, selective where others are desperate, unmoved where others are chaotic. And in that contrast, authority is born. This is how you control how people treat you without saying a word. This is how you reshape your social world without confrontation. This is how you step into a version of yourself that does not negotiate dignity for comfort. The transformation is complete when you realize something profound. You were never trying to control them. You were learning to control yourself so completely that their behavior had no choice but to change. That is the Machiavellian way. And once you reach it, you will never again return to the man who accepted less than he deserved. If this awakens something in you, if you're done being overlooked, underestimated, and disrespected, then subscribe now. Because this is where ordinary men come to learn the psychology of power, discipline, and quiet dominance. No noise, no empty motivation, just the strategies that make the world treat you differently. Subscribe and begin your transformation into the man they can't ignore.